On this deconstruction journey, we have unclobbered the scripture that is falsely taught to condemn LGBTQ+ and same-sex relationships. We have exposed false teachings that are used for religious manipulation. We recently addressed the big one, the myth and false teaching of hell. It's a lot, and it rattles the core of our theology, but in the most wonderful way. We opened the box we had God in, and all heaven broke loose. Beloved, have you ever wondered, are we sure? Can we be absolutely certain about our beliefs?
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday? So I call you up and you call me down. Would it be okay?
Well, hello and welcome to the FreedHearts podcast. My name is Robert Cottrell, and I'm here as always with
Susan Cottrell.
Wow. Susan Cottrell.
I'm trying to shake it up a little bit.
You shook me up right there. Welcome, everyone. Connect with us at freedhearts.org. It's where you'll find everything we do. Don't forget our links to the merch we sell and all the resources and all the biblical links and connections. It's all right there. So, as well as Susan's TED Talk is right there too. So It's a great place to poke around. And if anyone you know is interested in what we do, that's all you need to tell them is freedhearts.org. Okay. Well, we know that a lot of you will have kind of moved beyond this, and some of you are right smack dab in the middle of it, but we know that it kind of still pops up sometimes. And on this deconstruction journey, on this journey so far in 177 episodes or so, and beyond the podcast, we've unclobbered the clobber passages that are falsely taught to condemn LGBTQ plus people, and same-sex relationships. We've exposed false teachings and narratives that are used to promote patriarchy and religious control and manipulation. And we recently addressed the big one, the myth and false teaching of hell. Wow, that's good. Who needs high-end, high-priced special effects when you have us? You know?
I ask myself that every day. Every day.
But it's a lot. It is a lot. And it really, it often deconstructs things that have been a part of our lives for a long, long time. And it can rattle the very core of what used to be defined as immovable theology. But it can rattle that in the most wonderful way. As we've said a lot, we opened this box we had God in, and all heaven broke loose. But we kind of wonder, are we sure? Can we be absolutely certain about our beliefs now?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Okay, so let's talk more about that, because we get that question a lot in emails and things like that. So we wanted to address that today via an email that you received.
Yes, that's right. So this question, we get this question kind of a lot, but this was just put so beautifully that I wanted to use it to launch this episode. So this mom wrote, "Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for this podcast. I started listening last year when my trans daughter was brave enough to come out to me. I believe these kids who are showing up for their lives, even after being raised in religiously fundamental households that taught them to hide and shame, are changing the world. Her showing up as her true self is giving me courage and strength to show up as my true self as well. And in order to do that, I'm having to discern and dismantle the lies that have been instrumental in the construction of my faith. It can be very disorienting and confusing and, of course, painful. I've lost my marriage, my church, and my friends, but I believe I'm on the path toward freedom, a freed heart. Yay! In the beginning of the episode," she writes, "about the lies of the church, you started off with the statement, 'We have come to know that what we were taught about LGBTQ was a lie.' I guess my question is, how did you get to that point of feeling so certain about your stance? I feel like another thing that I've lost with leaving my fundamental religion is my beautiful certainty that I used to have about God. I've always loved having the answers, and now I feel like I'm searching for my footing. A couple of my close friends that I'm still trying to hold on to really think that I just don't care about what God says anymore. And I've just got itchy ears, quote. They would not say that, but I can tell from the responses and conversations that they're fearful for me and believe I've just gone down the slippery slope. Oh my gosh, all these buzzwords in here. She says, and maybe secretly in the back of my mind, I fear the same thing, though I keep reminding myself of how much my compassion has expanded, my humility has increased, the amount of questions I ask now compared to the amount of statements I used to make has totally flip-flopped. My fears have even decreased. This sure sounds like a lot of good fruit, doesn't it? Maybe I'm even answering a little bit of my own question. But anyway, I'd love to hear about how you've become so certain about the LGBTQ stance after what sounds like very deep roots in the fundamental church. Maybe I just need to go back to the beginning of your podcast and binge all the episodes. But if you have one in particular that shares how you arrived at this certainty, I would love to listen. Thank you for all you're doing and for being on the front lines. There are many finding the strength to swim in your wake.
Well, that's a beautiful email.
Beautiful.
Thank you for writing that, by the way. We know you're
Yes.
listening. Thank you for writing that. It is just a little aside here. I want to say that as we deconstruct, you tend to start to hear things differently. Like she said that her friends are saying that she doesn't care about what God says anymore. And it's like bells go off and go, it's not God saying it.
Yeah.
It's man saying it. And even if it was divinely inspired at the beginning, it's been edited, translated, changed. You know what I mean? So you hear these things and it's like, so yeah, but that was a beautiful email. Thank you for sending that.
Yes,
and
beautiful.
Anyone else that has those kind of things or has anything you want to talk to us about, don't forget podcast@freedhearts.org is the email address for that. Podcast@freedhearts.org.
Yep.
So how did you answer?
So I said, you're completely right in your thinking here. You asked about how I got this certain, and it came over time, but it snowballed. So it gained momentum as it went. The more I went, the more things fell into place. The more I knew I was right, the less sense the old way made to me. You are growing in your own certainty too, even when doubts pop up out of nowhere. The doubts are not an indication that you're off track. They're a remnant of the brainwashing we've been subject to at the hands of the church, aided and abetted by the culture, politics, and often our own families. What is that certainty? It's everything you said as you were answering your own question. Compassion, humility, more questions, less fear. All this is in total alignment with spirit. I know exactly what you mean by that, quote, beautiful certainty. But as you've discovered, it's false. If you touch it or press it or breathe on it wrong, it disintegrates. That's why they're protective of it, why they hold so tightly to it, because they know in their deepest knowing that it's a house of cards and it won't withstand even a gust of wind.
It's just, even if you think about the certainty before that we thought we had versus the certainty now, if you think of certainty before, you tend to think of a strict adherence to the literal scripture, what my pastor taught, what's in our church belief statement, versus that the Spirit will lead us in all truth. Yeah. I mean, does one of those have peace?
Yes.
And just feel right in your gut and in your heart? Yeah.
Exactly. And the breath of life, Spirit's breath, will whisk that certainty away. And that's a good thing.
That false certainty. Yes.
That's a good thing. My father used to say that a scientist doesn't rail on about how gravity works. They just state their findings. And if you don't believe in gravity, it doesn't affect gravity in the least. Gravity just goes on doing what it does. But a preacher, etc., rails at you because they have a stake in what you believe. Their power and money depend on it. I'm telling you this for your own good. No, you're actually not. And I don't need this kind of good, thanks. We love to be certain about things. We love to have all the answers. And that's what the church offers.
Sort of.
Well,
that's what they claim to offer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. People buy it because it provides an illusion of safety in an uncertain world. But just because you love the comfort of having all the answers doesn't make the answers any more true. And staying with the false answers doesn't get you any closer to the truth, and it doesn't bring you a true depth of peace that is beyond understanding that Jesus talked about, right? In fact, it can feel worse because you're trying to find your footing when whatever someone lobs at you, like satisfying itchy ears. I mean, people just pull these things out and say them, or believing what you want to believe or excusing your child's sin or your own sin. This is all an attempt to hold back the collapse of their own uncertainty. They're invested in their certainty, and they're holding up the roof of this house of cards for their own benefit and dishing it out on you. Remember, they have to work night and day in their own worrying subconscious that they're going against to stay in this false theology. And even though I know it doesn't feel like when you're in it.
You talked about the scientist analogy and gravity, and again, like we just talked about with the preaching of a preacher or certain things, a statement of beliefs and statement of theology versus the Spirit will lead us in all truth. The same thing if we could compare a sermon given by or a correction given by a preacher today or the Pharisees or Sadducees of the time versus a sermon, if you want to call it that, by Jesus. There was nothing writing on that.
Yes.
It was just Jesus knew that there was so much life in what he was saying that all he had to do was speak it. He didn't have to worry about what was going to happen beyond that. There was so much life and truth in that. He didn't need to defend it, go over it again, use fear it just didn't, but that's needed now,
He only had to worry about them coming for him. He didn't have to worry about, are you going to stop paying and keep supporting my living if I don't beat you into believing this?
Right, exactly.
He wasn't afraid of the people. He just had to keep his eye on the religious leaders. Okay.
So you continued to answer, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, it's great. It's really helpful. My husband said...
Who?
Sorry, I'm reading what I answered her back, but
I know, I just playing.
I know.
Just playing.
My husband, Robert Cottrell, said, the first time we went to a fully affirming church after 20 years of evangelicalism, he said, I had no idea how much I wasn't being my true self.
I remember.
Yeah, we were sitting in this really nice affirming church, and it was like, I had no idea how much I wasn't being my true self. And I knew that too. I felt it too. It was amazing. It took a safe place to realize how safe we weren't. And they'll tell you they're afraid for you, but really they're afraid for themselves. Mm. If they were really afraid for you, they'd ask more questions. They'd press into your own thinking. They'd listen, and they'd want to understand. Instead, these conversations are characterized by stopping you so they can tell you what they think and what you should think. That's not a concern for you. That's not concern for you. That's concern for them.
That's a good point.
And the only reason it's able to hook us in is that in the back of my mind, we're afraid of the same thing.
Yeah. We're afraid seems to come up a lot in here. And don't forget, fear is the motivator. Yeah. Fear of whatever, fear of health, fear of being dismissed, kicked out, whatever. So that fear is a big part of it.
And this silly comment of the slippery slope of sin, please. Where do you slip to? Love, peace, joy, embracing and loving the most vulnerable and hurting in society? Yes. And where do you slip from? Angst, judgment, legalism?
Oh, heck yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, that sounds more like a slip and slide. I'm in. Let's go.
Let's do this.
So then how do you know? Look at the fruit.
And that's what she said at the end of the email.
That's what she said. look at the fruit. When the fruit is cramming people into boxes that don't fit, making them pretend, having them deny their true selves, shoving them into depression, self-hatred, risky behavior, suicide, all that is deadly fruit of a deadly message. It gives no life. Think of fake fruit. It may look shiny and beautiful, and it never changes. It's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Yeah, because it's fake. It doesn't nourish or satisfy you. And in fact, if you ate it, it would kill you. If you go to a plastic fruit factory,
Try one more time.
if you go to a plastic fruit factory,
There you go.
it's toxic. It's industrial and ugly, and it smells and like toxin. And nothing about it says nurturing or satisfying. Nothing in it will feed you or serve you. But if you go to a fruit farm, it's beautiful. It's alive and growing. It's lush and satisfying. You can pick the fruit right off the tree and eat it and be filled. And it's all meant to be for a season. What doesn't get eaten will go to seed and become next season's fruit. That's true of all truth. And it's as good as it's meant to be. When the Spirit visits you with truth, you take in what you can, you feast on what you can, and what is too much to absorb, it goes to seed. It'll come back in another season and with a chance to learn it again. Not in a threatening way, but in a, okay, would you like some of this now? Okay, great. And remember that we were certain collectively that the earth was flat. But that certainty had to give way to a global earth. And in fact, that discovery took hundreds of years longer than necessary to become commonplace understanding because religion wouldn't let go of its false truth of a flat earth. Isaac Newton's science was as true can be until it gave way to Einstein's relativity. Even truer, until it gave way to Planck and quantum physics. And that's now the pinnacle of truth. Until tomorrow, we don't know what's coming next. And that's how truth is. It's only ever partial, isn't it? Yes, and it's much more relative than we like to think. And you'll get in trouble in your church for saying that. So you don't need to worry, you don't need to say it there. You can know it yourself. And it's not that I'm too far out in what I'm saying. I'm only pointing out these tiny dots of history and showing that even our most foundational truths eventually gave way to something truer, so to speak. When you recognize this pattern, you see that things never were so crystal clear and certain as we like in our certainty, as we claim them to be in our certainty. And that may be the hardest part of this deconstructing of our belief system, that we must sacrifice our certainty, which we are addicted to. We love our certainty, but if it's false, do you really want it? If you have to say, everything's fine, just fine, I believe, don't give me any more information because if I think too deeply, my certainty might crack. And I like to be certain. So no more thought-provoking conversation, thank you. I get that, and I'm not making fun of it. I understand it. Certainty is comfortable and comforting, but at what cost? And I'll tell you at what cost. Deep, true peace, the kind that goes beyond understanding.
That's the certainty we're talking about here.
Yes.
Because I am certain about things like inclusion and love and acceptance and things like that, because of the fruit that comes from that, because how much they line up with the life and teachings of Jesus, because they line up with the two things he said we need to do, and that's love God, love others, which is really the same thing.
Yes.
And so
you're certain because of it resonates inside your spirit. It doesn't cause you to.
And there's a verse that talks about that the enemy comes against the simplicity that is life in Jesus. And so our certainty doesn't have to be a 14-page belief statement or sections of our website called our what we believe.
Right.
It's pretty simple.
Yes.
But that's not, you can't profit, you can't manipulate that, you can't control that, you can't draw fear out of that to manipulate people to stay in the pews or to not go to the church next door.
Right.
So that honestly, the simpler it is, the more likely it's right in line with the truth. This is simple.
Yeah.
And
truth is simple. It's lies that are complicated.
And you can be certain about that.
Yes. Yes. And a major fallout of surrendering our certainty is that we may feel foolish, duped, tricked, maybe angry, and regretful, sorrowful for lost time. I tell you, how could I believe that for so long? I look back at me, who was doing the best she could, who was so sincere and so earnest, and I feel so embarrassed that I believed those things so certainly, and they were just what I had been fed.
Yeah.
And when you take those off and let them fall away, and I feel a lot of empathy for her because she was doing what she was. She was sincerely trying to do the best she could.
And you were duped, and I
was
tricked,
duped and tricked
intentionally at times.
Yes, to keep me
afraid,
and so
quote,
attached
in your place.
Yes, and so so let's have compassion for that earlier version of ourselves and love them with all our hearts because they deserve that. But once you start to realize it, then it's better to get out.
Yeah.
It's better to say, okay, this is not fitting in. Let's try it a different way and take it apart. See where things.
Yeah, that's opening the box we have God in.
Yes. Yeah. And I wonder if anyone who sat by through the Holocaust in denial of what was happening to their disappearing neighbors, I wonder if afterward any of them felt horror and deep remorse.
I'm sure.
That they denied the whole thing, yeah. Or did they just continue in denial so that the horror didn't overwhelm them? That's kind of the choice. You can double down so that you don't have to face what you didn't know.
Yeah.
Or you can press into it. And, it's like a self-lobotomy to do that.
Yeah.
And that regret may be one of the biggest barriers to questioning our faith. Because when those questions pop up, now we have to face our own convoluted thinking that, when we thought that hate was love and love was hate, as just one example. And that question, if I'm wrong about this, what else am I wrong about? What if that unravels like a ball of twine and there's nothing at the center? But let me spoiler here. Let me tell you what's at the center. It's love. This I know with complete certainty. And love is all there is. Love is what holds our molecules together. That, love is it. Love is what it's all about, which makes it pretty vital that we dive into what love really is and what love isn't. And when we have to face the decades of wrong thinking, wrong at some level, right? And feeling as though we wasted all that time. I've thought that more than once, but was it time wasted? I know I did the best I knew at the time, and so did you, because I don't see any other way I could have understood this thinking now to be the advocates that we are if we had not been in it. And that's what redeems it from being wasted time, is learning and moving forward to the next place. If it grew us to where we are, then I can't say it was wasted.
Yep.
And even if you're stuck wishing you'd known better sooner, you still don't have to throw good money after bad. Here's what I mean by that. Someone close to me inherited a bunch of junk from her in-laws, and because of her hoarding issues, she couldn't let it go. And so she put it all in storage, and now she's been paying a significant monthly storage fee ever since, for years. And whatever value she imagined she might have gotten was eclipsed in the first month's fees anyway. She's just losing big money every month for nothing. And I'm pretty sure that she's going to do that until she dies, because at this point to say, well, I wasted thousands of dollars for nothing, she just can't do it. So she's wasting more money paying her children's inheritance to whoever owns that storage unit. And I tell you this as a cautionary tale. It's a very definition of throwing good money after bad, to continue to pay, whether it's for a storage unit or for your spiritual authenticity, for being true to yourself. It does not redeem what you've already spent. It just pays it more and more and more. You don't have to do that. What we really want to say is to trust yourself. Whatever unblocking that may take, trust your inner knowing. Trust that you are good, that your heart is good, that your intentions are good, and that those who are telling you different, including those who implanted guilt and shame that continue to reverberate, they do so for their own reasons, not for your best interest. Trust that the Spirit does indeed know how to lead you. Keep watching the fruit that emerges, the peace that comes when you relax and let that stuff go, as well as the angst that comes when you get concerned about doing and thinking everything that you were taught. That peace is incomparable. The truth for you will become clearer and clearer, and the lies will become clearer too, and you will become certain, but in an authentic way, not in a duct tape together way. And if you have specific questions, feel free to reach out. But also, as this mom said, maybe I need to binge all the episodes from the beginning. We completely support that as well.
Absolutely. Beloved, when you look at Scripture through the lens of love, through the teachings and life of Jesus, when you trust your beautiful heart and that still small voice, the Spirit that Jesus said would lead us in all truth, you do and you can become certain about what's at the core of all of this, and that's love. You can have a peace that passes understanding, so your heart is free to love and be loved, and that's the goal. We love you.
Yes, we love you.
We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday, so I call you up and you call me down? Would it be okay?
You've been listening to the FreedHearts podcast. We have extensive resources and vibrant, inclusive community for you at freedhearts.org. Please just come say hello. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions for the podcast, just email us at podcast@freedhearts.org. Audio engineering is provided by Luke Johnson. The music is provided by our daughter, Hannah Cottrell, who is Grammy nominated. You can find out more about her and her music at hannahcottrell.com. Please share, subscribe and follow on your favorite platform, and support us if you can. Thanks for listening.
Would it be okay?